Your presence here is not some random accident. Something inside you guided you toward these words because a part of your soul has been searching for understanding for a very long time. For months, maybe even longer, you have carried emotions you could barely explain to anyone around you. You tried to silence them. You tried to convince yourself that you were simply overthinking or holding on to something that should have faded already. But no matter how hard you pushed those feelings away, they kept returning to you in quiet moments, in sleepless nights, and in the spaces between your distractions. That is because this connection was never shallow. It was never ordinary. What you feel is not something created by fantasy or loneliness. It is something much deeper. Your soul recognized something before your mind could fully understand it. And that recognition changed you completely.
Pause. Most people expect destiny to arrive peacefully. They imagine love appearing gently, bringing immediate certainty and comfort. But real soul connections rarely begin that way. Real destiny disrupts your life before it transforms it. It shakes loose the parts of you that were asleep. It exposes fears you did not know you carried. It forces you to face the wounds hidden beneath your carefully controlled exterior. When two souls are truly meant to cross paths, the first thing that appears is not comfort. It is recognition. You meet someone and suddenly feel seen in a way that unsettles you. They touch something inside you that no one else has reached before. And that feeling can feel overwhelming because it goes beyond attraction. It reaches into the deepest layers of who you are. This is why connections like this often become complicated. Instead of rushing two people together, life creates distance between them. It slows everything down. It separates them. Not because the connection is wrong, but because both people are being prepared for something greater than they are ready to hold in that moment. The separation is not punishment, it is transformation. Many people misunderstand silence. They assume silence means the feelings disappeared. They think distance means someone no longer cares. But with deep soul bonds, silence often means the exact opposite. Sometimes the emotions become so intense that the other person does not know how to handle them. The instinct is not to move closer. The instinct is to retreat. The person you keep thinking about is not unaffected by this connection. They are struggling with emotions they never expected to feel so deeply. You awakened something in them that forced them to confront themselves honestly. And for someone carrying old wounds, fears, or emotional defenses, that can feel terrifying. Their silence is not empty. It is filled with conflict. Part of them wants to run from the intensity because it threatens every emotional wall they spent years building. Another part of them cannot forget you, no matter how hard they try. They replay memories unexpectedly. They think about conversations they never finished. They feel your absence in moments when they least expect it. Even if they appear distant on the outside, internally something is changing. This is why destined connections often include long periods of separation. The universe does not unite two souls fully until both are emotionally capable of sustaining the connection without destroying it through fear, insecurity, or emotional immaturity. Sometimes both people need to heal separately before they can truly meet each other in a healthy way. And during this distance, both souls are transformed. You are learning how to love without abandoning yourself. You are learning how to stop making another person responsible for your worth. You are being guided toward emotional strength, self-respect, and inner peace. Meanwhile, they are being pushed to confront their fears of vulnerability, intimacy, and emotional truth. That is why this connection refuses to disappear completely, because its purpose is not finished yet. What makes soul-level connections different is that they continue affecting both people even in silence. You feel sudden emotional waves for no reason. Certain songs remind you of them unexpectedly. Dreams become vivid. Memories return with strange intensity. Sometimes you feel their energy before you even understand why. These are not meaningless coincidences. Energy does not stop existing because two people stop speaking. What exists deeply within the soul continues moving beneath the surface. And while you have been wondering whether they forgot you, they have been fighting their own inner war. Their ego tries to convince them to remain distant, but their heart keeps returning to the truth. They are realizing that no distraction truly replaces what they felt with you. No surface connection touches them the same way. The more they try to escape it, the more undeniable it becomes. That realization creates a breaking point. Eventually, the pain of staying away becomes heavier than the fear of coming back. And when that moment arrives, their return will not come from confusion or loneliness. It will come from clarity, from surrender, from finally accepting feelings they spent so long trying to suppress. But before that moment arrives, there is something important you must understand. Your life cannot pause while waiting for someone else to heal. The universe is not asking you to sit in anxiety, checking for signs every hour, or sacrificing your peace while hoping someone chooses you. Your real task is to become whole within yourself, to build a life rooted in self-worth instead of emotional dependence. Because the paradox of soul connections is this: the more you release desperation, the stronger your energy becomes. The less you chase, the more magnetic you become. When you stop organizing your entire existence around their absence, you return to your power. And that power changes everything. You begin living again. You stop begging the universe for proof every day. You stop losing yourself in fear. Instead, you become grounded in your own peace. You realize your worth does not rise or fall based on another person's readiness. That is when the energy shifts, because real love cannot grow inside fear and desperation. It can only thrive where there is emotional wholeness. So if this connection truly is destined, it will not require you to destroy yourself while waiting. Destiny does not ask you to shrink your life. It asks you to grow through the experience. And if reunion happens, it must happen between two transformed people, not two wounded versions still repeating the same painful cycle. This is why the universe created the pause, not to punish you, not to abandon you, but to prepare both of you for something healthier, deeper, and more conscious than what existed before. The story between you is still unfolding, even if you cannot see all the movement yet. Beneath the silence, beneath the distance, beneath the confusion, change is happening. Growth is happening, awakening is happening, and whether this connection ultimately leads to reunion or release, one truth remains the same. You were never meant to leave this experience unchanged. This connection entered your life to wake you up, to reveal parts of yourself you had ignored, to teach you what love, fear, healing, and self-worth truly mean. And because of that, your soul will never be the same again. Trust the transformation. Trust the growth. Trust the version of yourself that is emerging from all of this stronger, wiser, and finally ready to receive the kind of love that no longer asks you to abandon yourself in order to keep it. The moment a destined connection enters your life, something inside you quietly begins to change. At first, you may not even notice it happening. You simply feel different, more aware, more awake to yourself and to the people around you. The things you once tolerated start feeling heavy. Conversations that once entertained you begin to feel empty. People you used to chase no longer excite you in the same way because your soul has started craving something deeper than temporary attention. Without realizing it, you begin becoming more honest with yourself. You become careful about who you allow close to your energy. You stop settling for connections built only on convenience or surface attraction. You begin wanting sincerity instead of inconsistency, emotional depth instead of distraction, and peace instead of emotional chaos. The strange part is that this transformation often begins because of one specific person, not because they completed you, but because their presence activated something sleeping inside you. A connection like this does not trap you in obsession. It pulls you into reflection. Instead of constantly thinking about them alone, you begin questioning your own patterns. You ask yourself things you avoided for years. Why do I fear abandonment? Why do I overgive to people who barely meet me halfway? Why do I confuse emotional intensity with love? Why have I accepted less than I truly deserve? These questions reshape you slowly from the inside out. That is why certain connections never fully disappear from your memory even when time passes. Their impact continues living within the person you are becoming. They change how you view love, relationships, boundaries, and even your own self-worth. They raise your standards not only for others, but for yourself. You stop ignoring red flags just to avoid loneliness. You stop chasing people who cannot emotionally meet you. You stop proving your worth through sacrifice and emotional exhaustion. Gradually, you learn that real love should not require abandoning yourself in order to keep it. This is how destiny transforms people. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. Sometimes these connections stay. Sometimes they leave. Sometimes they disappear long enough for both people to become completely different versions of themselves. But regardless of whether reunion happens or not, the connection already fulfilled part of its purpose the moment it awakened growth inside you. That is why destined relationships rarely move in straight lines. They move through confusion, distance, silence, healing, and self-discovery. They force two people to confront themselves before they can truly meet each other consciously. The universe does not rush souls into lasting union before they are emotionally prepared to sustain it. And often, the deeper the connection feels, the more separation becomes part of the process. You think about them during moments of personal transformation, during nights when your thoughts become deeper than usual, during emotional breakthroughs where you suddenly understand something painful yet freeing about yourself, not because you are weak, but because your soul recognizes that the connection carried unfinished meaning. This is not unhealthy attachment in the way people often describe it. It is integration. Your inner world is trying to absorb what the connection taught you, trying to place the experience where it belongs in your story, trying to understand why this one person changed your perspective so deeply. That is why replacing a destined connection often feels impossible at first. People try. They meet someone new. They distract themselves. Life appears normal again on the outside. They laugh, socialize, and continue forward. Yet beneath everything, something still feels incomplete. Not because the new person lacks value, but because the connection does not reach the same depth of transformation. A destined bond is not based only on attraction or chemistry. It exists to awaken growth. One person learns boundaries. They stop abandoning themselves to keep love alive. They realize self-respect matters more than temporary validation. They learn that love should not require constant emotional self-sacrifice. The other person learns accountability. They begin understanding that silence creates pain, that avoidance does not erase feelings, that emotional honesty matters. That connection requires courage, consistency, and responsibility. One learns how to stop chasing. The other learns how to stop running, and while this growth happens separately, neither person fully sees the larger picture yet. That uncertainty is intentional because transformation requires space. If everything became clear too quickly, neither soul would evolve deeply enough to break old patterns. This is why separation often feels spiritual. It strips away illusions slowly and painfully. Illusions like believing love should always feel easy. Illusions that another person is meant to save you from yourself. Illusions that suffering proves devotion. Illusions that your worth depends on being chosen. Life dismantles those beliefs through silence, distance, heartbreak, and introspection. And eventually, something unexpected happens. You stop needing the outcome. You stop checking your phone constantly. You stop waiting for one message to determine your happiness. You stop believing reunion is the only path toward peace. Instead, you become grounded within yourself, calm, clear, emotionally steady. And strangely, that is often when the energy begins moving again, because real love is not built through emotional dependence. It is built through choice. When two people can stand on their own emotionally, love becomes healthier. It becomes intentional rather than desperate. It becomes conscious rather than reactive. If reunion happens at that stage, it feels entirely different from before. There is less fear, less ego, less emotional chaos. What replaces it is honesty. The connection feels calmer because both people have already confronted themselves separately. They have already faced their shadows, already sat alone with their pain, already learned difficult lessons about fear, vulnerability, and self-worth. There are no games anymore, no constant confusion, no need to test each other emotionally. The connection becomes quieter but deeper, more mature, more aware. And sometimes, despite all this growth, reunion never happens. That is one of the hardest truths to accept. But even then, the connection was still real. Not every destined relationship is meant to last forever in physical form. Some exist to break generational cycles. Some enter your life to expose unhealthy patterns you inherited long before you understood them. They reveal where love became tied to sacrifice, where silence became mistaken for peace, and where attachment replaced emotional security. These connections awaken you. They force you to see parts of yourself you could no longer ignore. And whether the person stays or leaves, the transformation remains. That is the deeper truth about destined love. It is not always about ending up together forever. Sometimes it's about becoming the person you were always meant to become because of what the connection revealed inside you. This piece revolves around one central idea. Real connection is not proven by obsession, chasing, or endless bid. Transformation. The repeated theme throughout the script is that destined relationships force both people into self-confrontation. The separation becomes less about punishment and more about evolution. One learns self-worth, the other learns vulnerability. One stops chasing, the other stops running. And whether reunion happens or not, neither person remains the same afterward. The strongest psychological thread is the idea that love becomes unhealthy when it is used to escape inner emptiness. The script keeps returning to the same conclusion. True connection can only survive when both people become emotionally conscious enough to sustain it. A powerful closing quote for this entire message could be, "Destined love does not arrive to complete you. It arrives to awaken you. And once you awaken, you are never the same again." Or, What is meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself in order to keep it. Or, some soul connections return as love stories. Others return as wisdom, but none of them leave you unchanged. In the end, this journey was never only about another person. It was about awakening. It was about becoming conscious of the ways you loved, the ways you feared, the ways you abandoned yourself, and the ways you searched for completion through someone else's presence. What felt like a love story was also a mirror, reflecting every wound, every hope, every hidden belief you carried about your worth and your ability to receive love without losing yourself in the process. The silence, the distance, the confusion, and the longing were not meaningless interruptions placed in your life to punish you. They were part of a deeper transformation unfolding beneath the surface. Sometimes destiny does not arrive to comfort you immediately. Sometimes it arrives to dismantle the version of you that could not yet hold the love you were asking for. It removes illusions before it reveals clarity. It creates separation before it allows conscious union. And painful as that feels, it often becomes the very thing that leads both people toward emotional truth. This connection changed you because it forced you inward. It made you question your patterns, your fears, your attachment to validation, and your understanding of love itself. It showed you where you were shrinking yourself to be chosen. It revealed where fear controlled your actions and where old wounds shaped your relationships. Through heartbreak, longing, and reflection, you slowly became more aware of who you are and what you truly deserve. And that awareness is not loss. It is growth. Whether this person returns or not, the transformation they activated inside you remains real. That is the deeper meaning of destined connections. They are not always measured by permanence, but by impact. Some people come into your life to stay. Others come to awaken parts of you that were sleeping. But none of these encounters are accidental. Every connection that touches the soul leaves behind wisdom, clarity, and change. If reunion happens, it will not succeed because of fantasy, obsession, or emotional dependence. It will succeed because both people have learned how to meet each other from a healthier and more conscious place. Real love is not two wounded people trying to save each other from loneliness. Real love is two whole people choosing each other freely, honestly, and without losing themselves. It is no longer built on fear of abandonment or the desperate need for reassurance. It is built on truth, mutual effort, emotional courage, and inner stability. And if reunion does not happen, that does not mean the connection failed. Some relationships fulfill their purpose simply by changing the direction of your life. They teach you self-respect. They teach you boundaries. They teach you that love should never require self-betrayal. They guide you toward becoming someone more grounded, more aware, and more connected to your own soul. Sometimes the lesson itself becomes the gift. The greatest realization hidden inside this entire journey is that your peace was never supposed to depend on another person's ability to choose you. Your worth was never tied to their readiness, their healing, or their return. The moment you stop making someone else's presence the center of your identity, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting to be completed and begin building a life rooted in your own wholeness. And from that place, love transforms. It becomes a choice instead of a survival need. It becomes freedom instead of fear. So trust what this experience taught you. Trust the growth that came from the pain. Trust the clarity that emerged from the silence. Trust that nothing real is ever wasted, even if it changes form. Some connections return stronger. Others become wisdom you carry forever. But all meaningful love leaves you more awake than you were before. And perhaps that is the true purpose of destiny, not simply to give you another person, but to return you to yourself, because what is truly meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself in order to keep it.